to everyone at home. We are glad you guys are here too. Today we are learning about sensory room ideas on a budget because none of us have tons of money for these kinds of things, and I'm excited to share some ideas with you. We are Big Faith Resources. We recently received a Lilly grant, the $1.2 million grant, to help empower and equip churches to do neurodiverse ministry. So that is what we are here doing. We are here as a resource for you. I myself am the Director of Children's Ministry at Westminster Presbyterian Church. I have my degree in ministry and theology with a certificate in special needs ministry and a graduate certificate in family education. Michelle Junkin is over here, and she will come tell you a little bit about her.
Good afternoon. I'm battling allergies. So I have a Master's of Divinity and the Master's of Christian Education from what was Union PSCE, now Union Theological Seminary, and I have a doctorate from the University of Dubuque. And I work with Heather. I'm the pastor of spiritual formation at Westminster Presbyterian Church in Oklahoma City. I don't know what else you covered. So that's kind of, she'll tell you a little bit about the story of how we got here and what we want to provide you all today.
Yeah. All right, so just a little background about me. I have two neurodiverse children. I myself am neurodiverse, and my husband is neurodiverse. So we are quite the family. It can get very interesting around there. But it is also a lot of fun. And the first thing that I want to say to you is thank you for being here. Thank you for being committed to this. You have no idea the impact that you will make. And just being willing to love on children that a lot of times are misunderstood. And so thank you. Thank you for being here. I would like for you guys to use a few minutes just to share a little bit about yourselves on your table, around your table. I'll get the word here in a second. Around your table about who you are, where you're from, and where you guys are in your congregation in this journey. So are you already fully functioning ministry to children that are neurodiverse? Are you guys just getting started? Are you considering getting started? What does that look like? So just take a few minutes to kind of go around your table and chat. Oh, yes, and that would be the online people too. Yeah, if they can share that online. And I'm going to go look at some of their responses if you want to go listen in. Okay, I'm going to bring us back. All right, so before we get started on talking about sensory rooms, I want to talk to you about the 3 pillars of engagement. This is something that is helpful in your training of volunteers. I think a lot of times volunteers and educators walk into a room and their goal is to teach, and they leave out some of the things that you need in order to be able to teach. And so the first step in that is regulate. An unregulated child is not able to learn. And that is where you start seeing they say bad behavior. And it's not bad behavior. They're trying to cope with what's going on. And so that's where we use sensory tools, or a sensory room, or a sensory space. And you'll notice I say sensory tool. That is something that we have implemented in our church, and our children have really responded well. We don't call these toys. Adults call them toys because they think they're toys, but they're not. They're tools that allow children to regulate themselves, that allow adults, I'm standing up here using one right now, to regulate so that they can focus and function in the environment that they're in. And so whenever we put together our sensory room, the first time we took the children in there, we explained to them that this is a discovery room full of tools for you to use, not toys. And so there are balls in there that typically, if you put in a classroom, they're going to throw because that's what you do with balls. But we explained to them, these are balls that you hug. These are balls, different balls, that you roll. And once we explained what each part was for and continue to reinforce what those are for, the children have really embraced that and utilized the space as it was supposed to be used. Even the adults that go in there, it's pretty amazing. Like they walk in and they're like, ooh, I like this one, and start using that as a tool. So I encourage you to use that terminology, especially whenever you're talking with your congregation members, because whenever they see stuff like this, they're like, you're just giving them something to keep them occupied, or you're just doing something to keep them busy, or whatever the case may be. And explaining how it is a beneficial tool can really make a difference. And then another thing that can be very helpful is training your volunteers and yourself, being very self-aware of how you are presenting in the moment. So how your emotions, does that make sense? How your emotions are presenting in the moment. In utilizing co-regulation. Co-regulation is very effective with children that are, ooh, go back. Sorry, I won't do that again. Okay.
You're in co-regulation connections.
I know, but I can't scroll down on my notes. You guys are just going to have to hang with me on this. It's not cooperating. So co-regulation is basically when two people help each other manage their emotions. So imagine with me, you are a youth minister or a children's minister or whoever you are, you're in a room and you have a child that is bouncing off the walls. The last thing you want to do is an active activity. And most people think that's what the kid needs. And it may be in some instances, but most of the time, whenever you're seeing this overly active behavior, what they need is someone to come alongside them. I'm going to use Michelle here and say, hey, it looks like you and I may need to have a moment. And I'm using a very calm, stable voice. And then we just go sit down and we look at a book. We do whatever we need to do. If they are fidgeting, if they're still moving, whatever they are doing, let them do it. Let them keep moving. The number one thing that we don't want to do is force a child to comply. Whenever you're
talking about stemming.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to go into. Whenever we are forcing a child to comply, it's actually damaging in their brain. And the more that happens, the more that they, as they are older, are unable to know what is it that I actually need. Because their body is telling them, I need this, and so they're stemming. Like my daughter jumps a lot. She is the happiest little jumper you will see. And it is the most precious thing whenever she gets excited. I was just sharing with Michelle, I had a volunteer upstairs, and Finley was just jumping. She was so excited to see this volunteer. And Georgiana was like, whoa, simmer down, it's okay, it's all gonna be okay. And I was like, oh no, she's just excited to see you. And so the very next week, here comes Finley, and she sees Georgiana, and she starts jumping, and she's doing her jumping, and she's doing her flapping, and she's so excited. And Georgiana gets down on her knees, and she says, Finley, I'm excited to see you too. And it was like, immediately, Finley had a friend. And immediately, this volunteer understood what Finley needed. She needed to be able to jump, and that's okay. And so she became the co-regulator for Finley. She was overstimulated, and she was jumping. But then they went into the sensory room, and they sat down, and they opened.
So stemming can be,
I'm sorry.
stemming can be rubbing their hands up and down. You will see some kids who spin, and so a teacher will be like, stop spinning. Well, sometimes you might need to find a place for the kid to spin.
Yeah.
But they need to spin.
Yeah.
And so when you begin to train volunteers to know what stimming is, it helps because it brings an awareness. It's not bad behavior. We have been working with.
Yeah. Come to the microphone.
Sorry. Yeah, because I can't shout right now. So,
I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. I was trying to give her a moment. Stemming, I was trying for online people. It might be, I hope you can see. We have kids coming into worship. If you've ever seen a kid do this, coming in over and over or on their side, and you might just think they have something on their hands, or they're spinning in circles around and around. That's not them cleaning their hands. It is a coping mechanism. It is a way that they are regulating themselves. So, and Heather can tell you a little bit more.
Yeah. So what I was going to say, sorry, I get a little emotional talking about this. But what I was going to say was the beautiful part of this was that on that specific day, Finley was all over the place. But this volunteer was able to get down and be, and whenever I say volunteer, this is a youth member. This is a youth member that I was able to train to do this and met her where she was. And it was the most beautiful moment because she walked her into the sensory room and gets down the little sensory tub that Finley likes to play with and opens up the Bible and starts reading the story for the day. And Finley came home and was like, so today we learned about how Jesus was baptized and how the dove came down and it was a pretty white one and like told me the entire Bible story. You guys, a parent's heart needs that. And whenever a volunteer can help that happen, or an educator can help that happen, it is incredible. And so co-regulation is your best friend. Like, use it. It is your best friend, honestly. The next thing that I want you guys on the front of your table, in the middle of your table, is a visual supports, schedules, and timers. Another thing that is hugely helpful, and the very first thing that I would put into a sensory room, is a visual schedule. Children, all children, thrive on routine. They need to know what's coming. They enjoy knowing what's coming next. And whenever you can give them, in our circumstances, we do either 3 things that are going to be happening or 4 things that are going to be happening, because I will be honest, transitions are horrible, like awful. Whenever I first came back, we had 12 transitions in 2 hours. Do you know how hard that is on a child? And we're talking, like, think you're the transition, parents drop off. Then you go sit down at the table. You wait for everyone else to get there. Then you tell the story. Then you do a craft. Then you sing a song. Then you get picked up. Then you go downstairs. Then you get a donut. Then you go into worship. Then you go up front, and the pastor talks to you while the whole congregation's staring at you. And then you go somewhere else. Like, all of those transitions are so overstimulating. So if you can take it down, combine as much as you can, and give children predictable routines, everyone starts thriving. And an environment that and choices is the other thing. So we give a lot of choices. We stopped saying, like, this is the activity that we are doing, but these are the activities that we can do. Because we realized that just saying you have one choice isn't enough to meet the needs for everyone. Yeah, so these are great. What I love about them, and I tried to cover everything. I'm sure I missed some schedules that you guys have, but we set it up so that they get their first. Usually I do a non-preferred activity is what we call it. So it would be like maybe the Bible story time that is harder for them to do. But then I'm going to break it up with something that they like to do. So it's going to be work time that is choice-based. And they know that if I do this, then the next thing I do is this, and we get to pull them off as we go, and there's that wonderful sound of as we do it, because it's great to hear that. So these are great to have. Another quick thing, you can get the magnetic sheets, and then if you have whiteboards in your classroom, just throw them up there, and they can live in your classroom. So we love those. And then another thing that a lot of people don't understand, and I still do this. I have a child that will lose her voice. Not like go hoarse, but it's whenever she is overstimulated, her brain will not allow her to speak. And so she will talk in full sentences 1 minute and then be overstimulated and not able to speak the next minute, okay? So whenever that happens, imagine being frustrated and not being able to say what you want to say, and someone is in your face saying, use your words, and they're like, I want to, but they can't, okay? So another thing that we have for you guys is like a communication board. Having these available is another thing that is great for children. And this is a PDF that you can resize. So we took these, another thing that we did was make a buddy bag. So your buddies or youth workers or whoever it is can have these on them, and if they see a child that's struggling, they have what they need with them on their body instead of across the room and trying to run over and grab what they need. And it just has a few things like visual reminders, like, okay, friends, we're getting a little loud. Let's be quiet. And then we have this smaller, and it's great too whenever if I'm teaching, you can have a volunteer and a kid's asking for something, they're like, show me. And they can point to what they need. So these are great. Identifying feelings is another thing that we have noticed kids. We put out, and you'll see them over here on the table, these little feeling buddies over here. And the kids started bringing them to us. Like, I'm feeling this, or I'm feeling this. And allowing them to identify their feelings and then being able to help them is another way to help with co-regulation as well. And then the last thing that I will say is your timers. Predictable transitions. So in 5 minutes, we will be doing XYZ. Okay, friends, in 3 minutes, we will be doing XYZ. And I give them countdowns. We also use, it's called Little Hatch Timer. And it's an app. I'll see if I can find it. And it's a little egg. And then the kids, some of my kids will like sit there and watch it because every time it hatches, it's a different animal. And so they want to know what animal's going to pop out. And there's like not really a fight about moving because it's like, watch the animal pop. And then I'm like, okay, we're all done. Let's go. And then they're all like, okay, let's go. You know, it's great. Let's have fun. Like that was a bee. So we got a bee that time. And so they enjoy that as well. So that's another great one that I like. So utilizing those things have been fantastic for us so that we can get to these moments where we have those aha moments with children. It's been great. So,
We've got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Will the online participants be given the PDFs?
Yes, I will be sending those out. Mm-hmm. So, do we have any questions up until this point? No? Okay. So what is a sensory room and why do we need one? I think you guys know why we need them, but it is either a separate space set apart or a room set apart to help stimulate. So there are sensory seeking children and sensory avoiding children. to either help stimulate or regulate an individual's senses. It helps the individuals with autism, ADHD, anxiety, other sensory issues to regulate their sensory input, and it reduces their stress greatly. As a parent, hear me say this, it is a physical and tangible way to love and accept my child, our children. It provides a sanctuary for those who may find traditional classrooms and worship environments overwhelming. So it is one of the best things you can do for your ministry, especially because statistics are telling us that neurodiversity is just increasing. We know 1 in 36 kids have autism, and 1 in 5 individuals, not kids, individuals, 1 in 5 individuals are neurodiverse. So in this room, there are lots of neurospicy people along with me. So just keep that in mind as you're planning these spaces too. It may not just be children using them. So what goes into a sensory room? All of the fun stuff goes into a sensory room. We like soft lighting, so string lights, lava lamps, LED lights. I recommend dimmable lights if it is at all possible, because then you can control kids that need a brighter environment versus a softer environment. Comfortable seating. We just did a Christmas Eve worship service that was set up in our social hall. We just renovated our social hall, and it was full alternative seating throughout. So we had wiggle seats and bean bags and couches, and it was incredible to watch everyone just walk in and just kind of relax into the space and use it like that. So comfortable seating is a must. Calming sounds, white noise machines, like soft music. Anytime you start getting louder music in there, it's too distracting. Not distracting, but like too overwhelming. So soft music or sound panels. You guys are going to get to do a tactile element here in just a little bit with sensory wall and tactile panels. We're going to show you guys how to make some of those. Visual stimulation, the bubble tubes, or they have these fun things that will like project up on the ceiling, and they take up about this much space in your room, and you just pull them out and use them when you need them, and then you put them back in. So those are great. Weighted items are fantastic. I highly recommend the weighted stuffed animals because you name them. Let your kids name them. We have Charlie and Lily in our room, and whenever I see a kid that's looking like they need some weight on them, I'll say, oh, hey, will you go get Charlie for me? He needs help. And they'll go get Charlie, and they'll love on Charlie for me, and that's providing that weighted input for them. And so that's been great. The fidget tools, the stress balls, fidget spinners, the fidget rings, all of that is fantastic to have in there. And then I love having sensory bins that you can theme to your Bible story. And they are super easy to do. And then we just put, do my peg people? And then these are super cheap on Amazon, little peg people. And they're faceless, which bothers some kids, but they're so cheap, I'm like, hey, what do you think their face looked like? And then they'll design a face on it. Sometimes you get Batman, and that's okay. But they are great because they can go in water, sand, dirt, whatever. It does not matter. And kids love to work with those as well. So what might it look like? So I realize space is precious in a church. So some churches may not have the opportunity to create an entire room. If you can create a calm corner in your space or designate it, that's another thing you can do. You can see over here, this is a calm corner. Is that showing up for you guys? Yes, it worked. Okay. So they just have a beanbag, and then they have the emotion like let's read our emotions, do our deep breaths, that kind of thing, and then they have a basket down here Over here, same kind of thing. They have their weighted animal. I'm pointing at the screen like you guys can see it. I'm sorry. They have their weighted animal, and then they have some kits and books that the kids can use. And then over here, this one's really fun. I wish I had a trampoline. But they have more space, so they put in the actual swing hanging from the ceiling, the trampoline, the ball pit, those kinds of things, a crash pad. These balance things, kids love. And they're like $60 on Amazon. They are worth the investment if you can do it. Because you can set up all kinds of things, and all the children love it. So I'll see kids are getting a little wound up, and I'll lay out, okay, friends, we're going to walk here. And we walk down those, and it's helpful. So this is our sensory room. We're still adding things to it. And our therapy dog is in there. If you can, this is our little therapy dog. He made it in. So we have a crash pad and bean bags. We have tactile boards, Legos, tons of Legos. And those are super easy to get your hands on because parents don't want to step on them. So just put a bin out at church, and then there's a $12 sorter on Amazon that you just shake it and it sorts it by size for you. And then you just put them in your bins, and then it's fantastic. It's great.
Kids, tell them about how certain kids like the sort.
Yeah. We have one little boy that's his job. Like, he comes in every week, and he gets frustrated because people mix the Legos, and so that's why I have the sorter. And so he will come in, and he takes the tubs of Legos, and he sorts them all for me, and it's like this little sifter thing, and then he puts them all back in the tubs, and then he goes on about his day, and it makes his day to do that. So that's kind of his weekly job. We have a light bright over here that is a lot of fun that the kids use with the bigger rods that you can put in, kind of like what you would see at a science museum. And then blocks, all of that. A standing table, so one that will raise and lower with the kids. Some need to stand and some want to sit. And then this is our light table / sensory table. So what we did was we bought a light panel that we could drop into our sensory table so that it saved space in our footprint because we don't have a very large room. And that actually has worked out really well as well. And then it's not in this picture, but over here in this area is a quiet corner that used to be a cabinet. So if you have a cabinet or a shelf in your room that is deep enough that you can just drop a curtain in front of and put some carpet and pillows in, kids will climb in there all the time. And it has been great for the kids to use. And I have little battery operated lights that they'll take in there and turn on and play with and stuff like that. So, any questions on any of that? No? Anything you want to add?
What is the pro of having it in part of the room so folks could go to it as needed versus a separate room? You would need to, they would then step out and go to a separate room with other adults that would then go with them. I'm just trying to figure out the logistics versus having space in the classroom.
Right. So we actually have both, and we use both on Sunday. For us, my model is full inclusion when at all possible. And then, yes, ma'am.
Share what the question was, just for the people online.
What is the benefit of in the room? Is that right? Am I saying that right? In the room, calming corner versus a sensory room. And I would say I don't know that there is one benefit over the other. What I love about having both is that my neurotypical children utilize the one in the classroom just as much as my neurodiverse children. And the way that we've kind of set it up is so that, and they utilize the sensory room too because we call it a discovery room, and anyone's able to go in there and use it unless we have someone that is having a meltdown, and then we ask that people step out so that they can regroup. But in the classroom, it is more just a corner that is away from everyone. You would want to set like a shelf or something that would block the view so that they are visually able to they are not visually overstimulated. So it kind of takes away that overstimulating part. You would want headphones because a quiet, calming corner in a classroom is intended to kind of destimulate. And then, what else would you want in the classroom? I'm trying to think what else we have. Yeah, the weighted items. We have weighted items in there.
The dots, sitting dots.
And sitting dots are the other, like the wobble cushions. We use a lot of those in there as well. But the sensory room is hugely beneficial for everyone as well. So it just kind of depends on what your end goal, not your end goal. I prefer to have a sensory room because it covers everything, where a calm corner will not cover if you have a full meltdown situation. Okay? Does that answer your question? Kind of? Okay.
There was a question online. What time do children utilize the sensory room during the week?
So are they asking specifically for church, or are they saying like, because we do partner with an agency or the church? Okay. So we use it, it's open before Sunday school, during Sunday school, and during chapel. So it's open, pretty much whenever they need it, I guess.
And then during the week, we have someone who comes over from a local school, a therapist, who uses it to do tutoring for dyslexic children. And they needed a space away from the school, but close to the school, and we're right next door. And so they use it every day with 2 kids.
And that is another great way, like if you have a therapist or somebody that needs a space, if you can partner with them and split the cost, it's a great way to get sensory items, more expensive sensory items into your sensory room. Any other? Yes, ma'am.
So I'm not sure if I heard you correctly or not, but are you saying that you do Sunday school class in the sensory room, or is it a place that they can go to separate from the lessons that are being taught? Because I understand when you have a corner, then obviously it's in the same room, but.
Yeah, so we have whatever is taught in the classroom is also taught in the sensory room. So the lesson is exactly the same. And the way that looks, which was really interesting because this last week, the only kids that came were the kids that needed the sensory room. And so it kind of threw me for a loop. Like I wasn't prepared to just have neurodiverse kids, which was new for me. And I was like, whoa, that was interesting. And they all, whenever we asked, I said, okay, friends, we're going to line up and go in and do godly play. And they were like, we want to stay here. And I was like, okay, well, let me pivot. And so I ran in, grabbed my godly play story, came back into the sensory room, and I said, okay, friends, here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to tell my story, and all I ask is that you keep your voice as quiet as you can. And they built a Minecraft village with Legos that mirrored the story that I was telling. And then I had a group over here that was in the sand doing the same thing. And so none of them looked at the set that I was working with, really, but they're all listening to what I'm saying. And every single one of them could tell me the story whenever we were done. So it worked phenomenally, and I was really excited about it. But I would just say, if there's a way that you can provide opportunities in the sensory space to mimic what you're doing in the regular space, it provides a cohesive ministry that allows kids to not feel left out, and parents to not feel like their children are missing out on something. Because sometimes you have parents that are like, well, I don't want my kid to miss the lesson, so they're going to have to go in there. Okay, and then you have a meltdown, right? And so then you're trying to regulate a kid, and they're not going to learn anything anyway. So if you can find ways to teach those lessons in those spaces, it's going to benefit.
Just a quick question. How can we, I mean, I'm thinking about logistics, I'm thinking about safe sanctuary, I'm thinking about a less number of volunteers than we've had in the past. How have y'all worked around and made that work for you so that you're, staying within all those parameters?
Yeah. So right now, it's primarily been Michelle and I running the sensory room.
Partly we have gotten into this so quickly on some levels that we're learning as fast as we can. We have 3 in the other room, and the kids are the ones who are directing. In other words, if a child is saying, I want to stay in here, again, it's not toys, it's a tool. And I can usually know who's going to self-select. If they want to go with everyone, and we don't say you have to be in here or you have to be in there. And so we also have some friends that will migrate. They'll be in the room to start, and then they'll go hear the Godly Play story and maybe come back. Our rooms are close, and what you can't tell is this is a glass wall that you're looking in. And so a lot of our adults would be right here, but this is completely open. We're lucky in that way. And then the other thing I would tell you is our congregation, people have come out of the woodwork to support this. So it was really hard to get volunteers to do anything unless it's this, and then they're like, we want to help. So we just haven't trained them yet. We have people who want to be trained. We just want to do the training really well. So we have not trained them yet.
Yeah.
It's another online question.
Okay.
How would you handle having a sensory corner that needs to be used by a neurodivergent student, but a neurotypical student won't share the space?
So again, I go back to tools versus toys. And I would say my friend here has a need for this. And usually, whatever I have in that space, I have more than one of. That's usually my rule of thumb. So I want to make sure that I have something similar where I can either trade or move the child.
And all kids. So why we set this up for neurodiverse, any neurotypical kid who wants to go in that room is welcome to be there. There's no exclusion. However, when Godly Play starts, generally we say, okay, Godly Play's about ready to start, and we're getting ready for our time. And the majority of kids kind of know, okay, we're going to travel over that way. We don't even have to tell them. And our friends who need this, our kids, are actually a lot of times better learners than our adults and our adult volunteers. We use egg timers sometimes, and also a lot of explaining. But when we've approached one of our kids, to the person who asked the online question, when we've approached some of our kids and explained it, we call it, like, I'll say this is a room where there's supposed to be a lot of peace, and these toys are about peacemaking. Like, we talk about it in theological terms and try to, again, reinforce it's not toys. And, hopefully they come alongside with that. But for our congregation, our kids have really, they are leading the way often, and they respect each other. But we've been very fortunate that we haven't had a lot of hiccups.
Yeah. Okay, we need to keep moving. So really quick, I'm going to give you guys a few minutes. I sent you guys an email. Did anyone bring pictures of their spaces? Fantastic. Anyone else have pictures of their spaces? I will come see you if you have pictures.
Online, share them if they have them.
Online, if you have them, share them, and I will come see you during the DIY portion and look at your spaces.
If you didn't bring a picture, maybe you could at your table describe the space you're thinking, okay, and talk through it, whether it's a room, a corner, really quick, the room that you saw up there, that was our library that never got used. And the adults were not happy when we said we were getting rid of all the books that they donated. But when we went in there and went to take the books off the shelf, they were literally, I kid you not, laminated to the paint on the bookshelves. They had not used them in that long. That whole room was filled with books. But I'd been there since 2007, and no one was ever using that space. They didn't want to give it up. So we did it over summer. Like we weren't sneaky, but
We kind of snuck it in there.
we got approval. But we also made sure that we donated the books to where it helped grow a forest. We also gave the books where we got a donation back, and we tried to help the church understand it was good stewardship. But we also needed the space, and that library is right in the heart of our children's ministry. We took all the adult ed books that were really good books. There was not, for as big as that space was, there was a small shelf of books that we kept. They are downstairs where the adult ed meets. Did not make sense to be upstairs. So you have to think differently about your space. And then hopefully it's not a sacred cow.
Yeah. So go ahead and share just in your group if you do have pictures. And then what I want you to do is like, hey, maybe you could do this if you are currently doing a sensory-friendly ministry. So resource share, think of some ideas. I'll give you guys about 5 minutes to do that.
Okay, so hopefully you had good conversations. Anybody online and anybody in the room, you can reach out to Heather and I later, and we can do some one-on-ones with you through Zoom, through emails, through phone calls, because your space and your needs of your church are going to be unique to you, and what works for us is not necessarily going to be something that you can just 100% follow and do for your space and your kids. So we're here, and we'll talk a little bit later how you can connect with us. But let's talk about some of the things that you're here for, how to do it on a budget, right? So we are going to transition in a little bit. We're actually going to get to make some stuff. And I want to tell you, sometimes it's thinking out of the box on where to buy stuff, because if you just go to educational stores, or even if you're going online, a lot of stuff can be really expensive until you start thinking a little bit differently. So for example, one of the places to know to be looking, you got to put your kind of sensory-friendly hat on. We're going to get to what's on the screen behind me in just a second. The party aisle of Target, Walmart stores, they sell things in bundles. They are a great place to find items really, really cheap, whether it be for your, like a bin, if you have a sensory bin, or whether you have a spot in your room. Clearance with Hobby Lobby. The fidgets, these were from Hobby Lobby last year. We got them for like 10 cents on clearance, a whole bunch. If you don't have the full Godly Play set and you want to put a sensory bin out, if this is normally, this is Michael's or Hobby Lobby, $10 normally. I bought it for $5. I used the half off coupon, and it's a full wood set, and the kids love this. So it doesn't, sometimes it's like putting your, I don't know if you like, it's like your hunter-gatherer. It's like getting into your hunter spirit and looking for your bargains. Monkey noodles, if you go buy them online, are pretty expensive, but I find that all the party aisles have monkey noodles, like bargain priced. They are a stretchy fidget.
They are
You
awful.
just won yourself your own pack. So
They are awful.
yeah, we'll give you your own pack. This was a version at Halloween. Heather got mad at me because her daughters took the black ones home and she thought they were a snake on the floor. So she says don't use the black ones. But just start looking at the party area. That's just a really cheap way to start. So that's some of those things. And then we'll have you look at some of these things. Sensory stones are great. You guys can come feel these later. They're made out of silicone. And a lot of times, again, they're kind of expensive, but if you have someone, a volunteer who can go price compare on Amazon, I was thinking these were something we weren't gonna do. And they ended up finding this version really, really cheap. So take a picture of this, and to online people, we'll post a
Those
picture.
were $6.99 on Amazon.
Yeah, $6.99 on Amazon. We'll post a picture to online people. We bought a sensory table from IKEA, and a lot of people are selling the inserts. But we found out that you can buy for $7.99, and we can set it up in a bit so you can see it, a tracing pad. So $7 to $10 on Amazon. It plugs in, it lights up. It will be your light table. Super cheap. It works just as good. And then instead of buying all the acrylic blocks, you can get, what's the other name of these things?
Magnetiles.
Magnetiles. This is just an off-brand. So this was at Marshall's for $4. So you could have it any table, or they could have this on their lap. The only problem with this one is it is a USB plug, so you have to have a way to plug it in that way. But there are all these ways out there that you can do the ideas that you see in our room cheaper. So to help you with that, we're going to show you this or that.
I did want to say a couple of things about these. So you might be like, what is this? These are eyeballs that go on your finger, and they're fantastic whenever you're reading scripture or trying to get a kid to focus. So they will follow along. They go like this. I don't think this was open. Do you have one that's open?
No, but I'll open it while you do that.
Another thing that I love is the pop it prayer. So like popcorn prayer, you have the pop it prayer. Very satisfying for a lot of your kids. So that's another thing that you can do. So I just wanted to point those two things out. So this or that. So they will tell you it's going to cost you $1 million to create a sensory room, and it probably could. But we have found ways to make it a little bit cheaper. So this or that. Again, you can do the more expensive sensory table, or we were able to find it on Amazon for less than $100. And I will send you guys this presentation, okay? So please don't feel like you have to sit there and snap every single picture. I should have told you that to start with. Yeah, everyone online will get it too. So this is great. Another thing that we have found, the swinging sensation is very soothing, but nobody wants to put a hole in their ceiling. This chair that is on here, over here, is the one that I use with my daughter at home. It is phenomenal. It is $60, and it collapses and goes in my car very easily. And it gives the same sensation. So the only thing that is hard with this is you do need to weight the bottom. So I have like the tent weights, that you can throw on to make sure that it doesn't fall over. So I would just recommend you have those as well. Again, saves you $100 doing it a different way. The fabric that kids are obsessed with right now, you can purchase it already cut, and it's, what is it? Like mended so that it won't unravel, binded or whatever, and then you just hook it on the hooks on the wall instead of having to have the full wood section. Or the pillows. That's another thing. Go to Marshall's or TJ Maxx or if you have like a big bin place where you can go dig around, these pillows are great. Kids love to just sit there and move them back and forth.
Can you say more about the fabric for those of us that are not familiar?
So it's a double-sided sequin. So they will run their hands down and it's one color, and then they run their hands back up and it switches to a different color. And so they can write words in it. It's really cool. At home we have a pillow, and so Finley will write hearts or whatever, and they really like it. It's a great.
What is it called if you look for it? It's called flip fabric.
Yes. Well, that's in the wrong place. So your wiggle seats can get expensive and they can take up space. But there's this great brand, Bouncy Band, And they're little cups that you put on the bottom of your chairs, and it gives the same sensation. And the great thing is, it's not another thing that you're trying to store in your room. So I highly recommend those. Those are great. The weighted items, again, I am a huge fan of the animals, but I am going to send you guys home with a DIY sheet on how to make your own weighted lap mats. So you can do that super cheap for less than $10 with a pillowcase. So that's another way that you can do it. Your scoops. So a lot of your sensory scoops that you will find, the sets are like $30, $40, $50 sometimes. This Helping Hands one, this one specifically is the one that you want. They are designed bigger for kids that have fine motor issues. So some of your kids have a harder time grasping or turning. I love them. So for your sensory bins, I love the Learning Resources Helping Hands. And then your crash pad. If you can purchase a crash pad, it is phenomenal. Kids love it. Oh, I didn't bring it. You do want directions for your crash pad. I learned this the hard way. Because kids will like wrestle, or you have two kids trying to jump on there at once. And so I will see if I can get our communications person to send that over to me. But she designed just a little sign that's like one person at a time, next person, like it shows the kids that visual schedule for it, or visual reminders for it. And the other thing is, if you can't get a crash pad off of Amazon or even spend this, we used a old futon mattress that I just bought an extra cover for a while that somebody was getting rid of. And so we used that until we could afford to buy the actual crash pad, and the kids loved it just as much. These are fascinating, and kids will stare at them forever. And they are these bubble tubes that just send bubbles up, and it's very soothing. I will stare at it for hours if I could. It's like staring at an aquarium of the fish moving. And the cool thing is, this one over here is actually, they're 4 foot tall, so it's pretty tall, and the kids can sit there and look at them. Okay. And then we have another version of a sensory table. So those are just some quick ideas for you guys. And then these are items you can make. So who wants to make something? All right.
I will tell online people I'm going to come answer questions as
Okay.
this group is getting started.
Okay.
and stuff.
So Michelle is coming to the online group to answer questions about your spaces. And then we are going to start our kind of miniature DIY. I had to think small because you guys are traveling, which was not fun. I wanted to do something a lot more fun, but we will work on, we'll show you guys how to do this. So a lot of things that you can do is make the sensory bottles. I'm sure you guys have seen those with the water and oil, or the Seek and Find. Kids love the Seek and Find ones, and then you just attach a little card with what's in there. And you can also print out, like I've printed out the little figures that are in my Bible story, laminated them and thrown those in the Seek and Find bags so that it goes along with the story. So while I'm telling a story, a kid has the bag and the kid's looking for what needs to be found. So that's another fun thing. So we're going to look at those. And then the tactile boards, we actually have these in our, I lost my little buddy bag. It's in our buddy bag over there for kids whenever they need them. So thank you. So if they're needing that sensory input, a volunteer can give them choices of different tactile options. So we have tactile boards that are smaller and portable, and then we have the larger ones that are on the wall in the sensory room as well. What what else? The sensory bins. I have a couple of examples of those that you guys will be taking home. And then the quiet cubby. Those are all things that you guys will have DIY instructions on. At the back of the room, we have different fabrics for you to choose so that you can make 2 to 3 of these to take home with you and try out in your ministries. And then we are not putting water. Do not put water in these because you're not going to get it through airport. So just put some beads or whatever you might want to put in your bottle, and then you can take it home, and it's half and half. So half baby oil, half water. Use the baby oil because it does not change color. Your other oils will eventually change color, and it's not as much fun. And then you super glue the top. And so those are a lot of fun. I have one kid that will just do this on all of them, and just go all the way down the row. So they are great to have as well. And then you can put food coloring in those. The Seek and Find, you can do a bottle, and I did not get enough of these for you guys, but this is another fun thing. They are Dollar Tree, 2 for $1.25, and they're magnetic. So on your whiteboards, if you need something quick for a kid to shake or focus on, they're great to have just kind of made and throughout. And then there's just a little tag that you can create and then have next to it. And again, like this one has all fruit in it. And then you add rice, and then they can shake it. They get that shaking that they like. And then they're also looking as well, if that makes sense. So at the back of the room, you guys can go choose what you want to do.
Okay, hey, everybody online. Hopefully this is working. We just asked our tech people to basically make us a private, no one else is hearing us. We're like doing a private Q&A just for you because you can't be here to DIY. We're going to be sending you all the recipes and handouts on how to do everything. So be looking for that packet. There's going to be like 8 things in there for you to do. But right now, to utilize the last 15 minutes of our session, we're going to open it up to some questions. I'll try to field them the best I can, and we're going to have someone sitting here telling me what you're asking. In the chat.
Yeah, so we can't hear you. We can't hear them.
You need to put the question into the chat. So you can hear me, but you need to type your question into the chat. No question?
I have a question. I could ask you a question.
Okay. Here.
Okay, my question is,
Speak into the mic.
what do you do if you are in a classroom and one of your children needs the tools, the sensory tools, but you only have 2 volunteers and you would have to go to another room to do the sensory to go to the sensory room? How do you deal with that? Because you can't be necessarily one-on-one with a kid for child safety protection.
So great question. We have been doing a buddy program where we've trained some of our high schoolers who travel with us. So It's another group that's able to move with us. However, if you were in a situation where you were worried about your child's safety protocols and you didn't want to leave them in the room, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I think in that case, it's probably the best thing would be to send an adult to go get the sensory tools
Okay.
and bring them to you and try to create a corner or a buddy bag. And then next week, if you know that family's coming back, you could try to ahead of time reach out to your pool of volunteers or your elders or your deacons. Deacons are great to ask them, like, hey, I have this one child who is needing to have that space, but I need to keep them safe. And then, so again, like, we have found it was so hard finding volunteers for other things, but for this, volunteers seem to really,
as much trouble. Yeah.
really resonate. But yeah, you're going to still always have to follow your safety, but sometimes it might be stepping away into a corner of a room, letting a child get back to where they're able to regulate
Okay.
might work.
Cool. Okay. Question is, who cleans all these each week, and how do you clean them?
Great question. Okay, so that would usually fall to Heather and I. It depends on what the surface is. So Lysol, if it's something that you can use with Lysol, we do it. Some of the things probably could be cleaner than they are. And we also throw some things out. So if the kinetic sand seems to be getting grungy, we rotate that really quick. We'll send you with we're going to send you a list of how to make the colored rice, and that's so cheap that I would say you just throw that out every time you use it. So some things you either clean yourself or you have to kind of keep an eye on it and rotate it out.
Okay.
I'm going to cough.
Do you? Oh yeah, I need you. Do you ever find kids are overstimulated by all of the sensory options?
So we have the ability to, where our corner is, it's on casters, so we can turn things around and limit the amount of accessibility to certain items on sometimes. We also have the ability to put away some of our panels. So in the picture of the big room, there was, on the right-hand side of the big room that she shared, was a Lego wall that I built. I got a wood panel from Hobby Lobby. I glued Lego squares onto it, so it's this great big Lego structure. However, it's completely portable. So sometimes we put some things away if it's causing an issue, if we need to bring the level down. And the same thing with lighting. If you have fluorescent lighting, you can get these pieces of fabric that are magnetic. They actually have little magnets on them, and often they're night scenes or clouds, and you can put those on your rectangle fluorescent lights. It brings the light level down. But yeah, we have it so everything in our room is actually not adhered to the wall. It's portable, so we can flip them, move them, add and subtract.
Okay. Where can one earn a special needs ministry certificate?
So I will have to circle back and have Heather tell you who she used. I believe it was through, like, one of them was through Key Ministries, and another program I think was With, and then there was an autism one. So I will try to grab Heather in a moment because she did a bunch of those certifications, and she's going to be the best to answer that. But I think 2 of those are the ones she used.
Okay. And then, how do you all accommodate children in the sanctuary?
So you're going to have to figure out what works best for your church. However, for us, we are a very traditional large church of 700 people. Right now, our kids, for worship, they are leaving at the time of after the children's sermon, before the pastor does a sermon. They leave with me. I'm a associate pastor. And we go learn about everything that happens in worship, why it happens. And so they're only in worship for a small amount of time. However, moving forward, in March, we are launching a parallel service that is directly below the sanctuary, that is set up like a coffee house style. and the sermon and everything is streamed in there, but it is a sensory friendly seating, and it's going to have sensory equipment, and it's going to be it's going to be fully staffed. But we realize not every church can do that. It's just what's going to work for kind of our church till we get them to a point where we could do that upstairs, but we're not yet. However, other churches do buddy bags, create quiet corners. I think you have to do some training of your congregation and decide, can your kids be in worship and an autistic child make a squeal and people not be, telling them they're bad, because they're not bad kids. And it's not even bad behavior, but it's educating your worshiping community to be child friendly too and neurodiverse friendly. But you're going to have to gauge it based on your church. All right. So you all have 5 more minutes with us. Let me tell you what they are creating. So I'm going to hold this up. I don't know if you can see it. Ooh. Okay. So this is actually a wood Christmas ornament that you can get from Hobby Lobby or Michael's. It's just a picture frame, but we found that this works really well with our kids. You can cut fabric and put them in there, and they like to carry these around, and it's cheaper than buying something similar on Amazon. These have little burlap hangers that already came with it on there, and we have a wall where these are hanging. The kids help make them, and then they live there. And so the kids are really respectful of them because they help build that area. But it is one of the things that it's a sensory item, and that's what they're making back here. Depending on how many people are online, if you have trouble finding those, we have some for you, and we could send them to you if you guys get us your addresses. The best way to do that is to go to bigfaithresources.com. So Heather and I both work for a church that got a Lilly grant, and bigfaithresources.com. Just go on there, subscribe that you want more info. But there's a section at the bottom of the webpage, put in, hey, can you send us the free items? And we will try to get that in the mail to you. And that way you can have the picture frames, because you might have a hard time finding them right now because it's not Christmas. Also, we can send you the DIY tubes, which are juice bottles from Amazon. If you Googled sensory bottles on Amazon, you're going to pay double the price. Here's one of them. You'd pay double the price if you type in sensory, but if you type in juice bottle, they're half the price. So it's just the way they've marketed them. So we can send you those. We have plenty. We'll also give you instructions how to do seek and find, which is a tube that's filled with rice and then small beads that they have to go and find, like the dog, the letter A, a bone, different things like that. You can put Bible stories in them, and they can search for those too. But they're all things that you can make for just cents. Okay, so to our online participants, I think we're going to let you all go. Thank you for being here with us. Again, if you go to our website, this can be the best way until Heather gets material out to you. I think we do have your emails from APCE. Okay, so we have some way to get hold of you to follow up, to get you all these sheets and any of the materials you need, and if you want one-on-one consulting. And thank you so much for your dedication to trying to find ways to be neurodiverse inclusive at your church. Blessings to you all.